15 years ago tonight, Malice at the Palace. Reggie Miller was in street clothes that night. Did you realize it was 15 years ago, Reg?
I had no idea. Obviously I'm getting the texts and the tweets and the social media, but, I tuned in earlier to you guys' broadcast, and when you said that, I was like, God, it's been 15 years since all that went down. It's still somewhat surreal, having been there and been in the moment of that, because you flash back to, things you wish would have went down. I mean, I wish I would have told Rick Carlisle, because I was, as you mentioned, I was in, civvies. I was in, my suit. I should have told Coach Carlisle, you know what, it's time to get the guys out of there. Jermaine, obviously Ron Artest, because we were up by like 15, 18 points with, 2 or 3 minutes left in the game.
It's under a minute.
Yeah, we should have gotten them out of there. But we were also trying to make a statement. This was a team that was the defending champions. They were our rivals. They had brought back, obviously, the same team. We had brought back the same team, but we had added Steven Jackson, which was like perfect for our mixture of guys. So, I get it that we were trying to make a statement on their home court that, yeah, you guys are the champs, and you beat us last year in the conference finals to move on and win. So I get it, but it got ugly real quick, Theodore.
I thought that Ben Wallace kind of got off a little bit here, where everybody blamed Steven Jackson and Jermaine and Ron Artest, but Ben Wallace was one of the agitators, initiators in that.
I was a little surprised he didn't get the lengthy suspension that Steven or Jermaine got. Obviously, Ron was suspended for the rest of the season. There was no coming back from that. But I was a little surprised at that, because what makes it so surreal is I just remember after the initial fracas happened on the court, when Ron and Ben Wallace went at it, and then the referee, after that was over, and then Ron went and laid on the scorer's table. That's when I came in and I was like, patting Ron on his chest, saying, all right, big fella, it's over, it's good. And then, to this day, Theodore, I can remember, I see that red cup flying in the air out of the corner of my eye, coming straight towards us, and hits Ron right in the chest that was full of beer, and it was like the Incredible Hulk. Like he turned green right there. And it was like in slow motion. I was like, no, Ron! And he burst off the scorer's table and went straight into the stands. And, I went right in after him to try to grab him, but it was too late by then because he had his mind set up on – I don't even think he knew who threw it. He just went into the vicinity of the cup. And that's when all hell broke loose. And I went in after him, tried to get him, and – the rest, Jermaine and Ron, Steven Jackson, he went into the stands as well. It was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
What was it like, though, when you guys went to the bus? Were you guys worried about your safety getting out of that arena?
What's ironic is not after that game, when we played them again and had to come to the Palace, that's when the issues of safety, because people were calling in bomb threats, and there was supposed to be hitmen and assassins. It was like crazy. So we had to stay on the bus. I'm not kidding you, 2 hours. We couldn't even go into the Palace the next time we came to play the Pistons, because there were so many bomb scares, and the police presence was unbelievable. But the rivalry was real. There was a lot of respect, obviously, between the two teams, but the rivalry was real. And I think people were taking it to a different level, but certainly surreal when you think about it right now.
How did that change the NBA?
It changed fan interaction. If you go to NBA arenas now, and you walk into each tunnel where the players run out, you see those tarps that are hanging now. That's all because of what happened at the Palace. If you remember when Chuck Person, myself, and Ron, after we had gotten Ron onto the court and we were heading towards the locker room. You remember how we were being doused with beer and Coke and popcorn or whatever? Well, that's when the league instituted all those tarps now. Because before you would walk by and you would sign autographs or whatever, high five, you would throw kids your armbands or shoes, whatever. Now they have those tarps there because of that. I just think it took a little bit away from the fan experience a little bit. It was just unreal going through the tunnel because we were just covering ourselves in just beer and Coke and whatever. People were throwing coins. It was just crazy trying to get into the locker room.
Talking to Reggie Miller, the Hall of Famer, and works for Turner Sports. He's on the call with Kevin Harlan, Kristen Ledlow. That'll be Pelicans Suns, 10:30 Eastern on TNT, coming up on Thursday. James Harden the other night scored 49 against the Timberwolves. He took 41 shots. When is it too much for James Harden? Like, is there a number where you go, that's too many shots? It's working. Is it going to continue? Is it sustainable?
For him, I think it is sustainable. You just hope he doesn't run out of bullets, right? This is a guy that says he's never into load management. If he's healthy, he's going to play. And I think he needs to play to stay within rhythm. You and I, we've talked about this. Are the Rockets any better than they were a year ago when they had Chris Paul? Now that they've added Russell Westbrook, just basically a swap. You do add another MVP and a guy that, they're familiar with one another from their days, playing with and against one another in Los Angeles. I think it is sustainable. We've seen this now for the last, 5 or 6 years from James Harden. So we know he can keep up the workload. The thing is, he's traditionally gotten tired come playoff time and runs out of gas. But I think having Westbrook to kind of take the load off of him a little bit, I hope this kind of keeps him somewhat fresh come playoff time. But we have we got another 4.5, 5 months of regular season basketball. Yeah. You hope he kind of takes a little bit of break here, that he doesn't run, start running on fumes here pretty soon. But it's an unbelievable run that's going on. I liken this, looking at him play, in today's rules, in today's game, where you can't touch, freedom of movement, it must be like how we felt when we had to guard his airness and Michael Jordan. He's unguardable. Seriously, he is. I'm not saying he is Michael Jordan, but in today's game, if you have to play James Harden, I don't know how you play him. You can't force him left. You can't force him right because he can go either way. He has a floater. He has a step back, double step back three where he creates separation. He gets every call, right? So he's getting to the line 10 to 12 times. I don't know how you guard him. I really don't.
Well, I
didn't know how you guarded MJ. You could not guard MJ. You could not.
Well, you wanted to force him to shoot the jumper.
MJ.
Yeah.
Early in his career, when he came back the first time from retirement, after he had won 3, I might add you, he had that jump shot. He didn't have the same bounce he had when he came back from retirement, but he had that fadeaway. He always had that fadeaway in the post, right?
Well, when he went down, on the block, all of a sudden
it was over.
Yeah,
it was over.
Yeah, yeah.
It was Will. He was Will at 6'5". You couldn't move him, and he was so quick. So when he faced you, the first step, he was by you. It's the same thing with Harden. He faces you up. He dribbles 8 times through the legs, and he's by you. And he has the strength and the size to hold you off. Not only is he by you, but when you catch up, he's so strong. He's holding you, so when he's getting ready to take the shot, you foul him. He's holding you, and you foul him.
Could Jordan guard Harden now with today's rules?
Wow. That would be a great matchup. It really would, because you're talking about one of the greatest defensive players at his position ever in MJ. But in today's rules, where the physicality has gone out the window, it's very difficult to guard James Harden. I don't know. Why don't you flip it? Why don't you flip it?
Well, no, Harden can't guard anybody. I'm going to say a quick no, Reg. Harden can't guard.
I would probably say a quick no, too. I think MJ would have a better chance at guarding Harden than Harden would having guarding MJ.
Oh, yeah. Paul George had 37 against the Hawks. He declared himself back, hit the game winner against the Thunder. It's going to be hard to assess this team, it feels like, Reg, because Kawhi is still doing the load management thing. I don't know if we'll know how good the Clippers are until maybe after December. I know they're great, or the potential for great, but, two guys working together for the first time and then a whole new team, and I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you think?
And you add Lou Williams to the mix and Montrezl Harrell, two guys coming off the bench who are going to have to be able to work with those other two superstars, right? Look, I don't think we're going to get the best picture of the Clippers, to me, until really after the All-Star break.
Okay.
When you get into March and April, when teams start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and they can start focusing in on the playoffs, I think that's when you'll start to get regular rotations, minutes. I think both of those players will perhaps be off the load management because they're getting ready for the playoffs. I think what's been a little bit more telling and upsetting for Clipper fans is the Clippers' defense. Look, I had them as a top 10 defensive team. When you've got Paul George and you got Kawhi Leonard,
Beverly,
Patrick Beverly, Montrezl Harrell, I thought they were going to be a much better defensive team. They're giving up way too many points, and teams are shooting too well against them. So they're going to have to be better defensively. I'm not worried about the mixture between Kawhi and Paul George. They'll figure it out. But we won't see the best of the Clippers, to me, until after the All-Star break.
LeBron says if he's healthy, he's playing. There's no load management. But if you were the Lakers, would you try to impress upon him that we want you to have load management? We want you to be ready for the second half of the season. Certainly at his age with that mileage, is this a smart approach by LeBron and the Lakers?
It's not a smart approach, and I respect what he's saying. If you're healthy enough to play, I always felt a 75%, 80% Reggie is as good as 100% of any of these other jokers that I'm lining up against. That's how I always felt. You've got to have that mindset. So I respect what he's saying. Look, to me, if they take care of business and he plays 28 to 30 minutes and he sits out the fourth, that's part of his load management. I'm sure if you look at the schedule, there's going to be certain games on certain back-to-backs. You perhaps take one away. I wouldn't go as extreme as Kawhi Leonard, where he's never going to play in back-to-backs. But I think you can pick and choose looking at the schedule where you can find rest for LeBron, especially depending on who they're playing. If you're playing one of these teams where you don't need his services, there are certain games that you can pick and choose where you can rest LeBron. And look, some of these other guys, which I think are starting to play well, like Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, now that he's back from that injury, he's starting to shoot the ball better. They're going to find ways to rest LeBron while these other younger players do the load management of the work on the floor, along with Anthony Davis.
You got Pelicans and the Suns on Thursday night. Any update on Zion Williamson?
The timetable for him to come back is still unknown. I think he has picked up I think he's on the floor now actually doing stuff. But no contact. But the timetable is still unknown when Zion is going to return, and unfortunately.
The Suns have been a pleasant surprise, and they don't even have DeAndre Ayton here. I like the mixture of having some veterans there. I thought they were just a team that was way too young. And, they're at least they have a presence there. They're not formidable, but you know what? They're competitive.
And let's give Monty Williams a lot of credit here. And you mentioned it, a mixture of veterans. They took a bad loss last night at home versus the Celtics, but they didn't have their floor general in Ricky Rubio. He was out with back spasms. And, you got a point guard in there that can lead these young guys. To me, I've always loved the game of Devin Booker. I just think he's a flat-out stud, a guy who can score the basketball and defend you at the other end. but they do have a lot of young players. So if Rubio is back on Thursday, I think it makes them a different team. They're definitely one of my surprise teams at the way they're able to score the basketball. They are shooting the basketball at a high clip. They didn't show that last night versus the Celtics, but again, not having Rubio out there on the floor, I think really affected them. If he's back on Thursday versus the Pelicans, I look for a better outing from the Suns.
We mentioned this a while ago on the show. McLovin and his first date, one of his first dates with his now wife, he went to a psychic. We were talking about how psychics, they give you that random question where they go, does anybody in the room have a dog? And then they go, oh, my God, he can read our minds here. You ever been to a psychic?
I've never been to a psychic. It's a little spooky for me to do that because you're right. I don't know if they're real, me walking in the door, they already know my whole life story, and that would freak me out. So, no, I've never been to a psychic or, a palm reader. I'm just not into that thing because it's a little too it's too spooky for your boy.
Were you superstitious?
Very, 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 very. Grew up in the church, so we look at mind readers and those type of people of the devil, Theodore.
Did you sing in the choir, Reg?
I did not sing the choir. I can't hold a note. Now, I would tell you this. I am Luther Vandross in the shower. Don't get me wrong now. I can hold a tune in the shower.
Wait, are you skinny Luther or?
How does that sound?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wait. If I close my eyes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
A house is not a home if that you're not living there. Come on. Doesn't that take you back?
Are you a better
90s?
three-point shooter than Luther was as singer?
I might be the Luther Vandross of the three-point line.
I have no idea what the hell that means, but we'll end it at that. Have fun in Phoenix, Reg. Thanks for joining us.
Theodore, I love you, and I love my Danettes. Y'all the best.
That's Reggie Aloysius Miller Jr. III.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.